The 8 News Now investigators first to confirm the connection between this Northeast Las Vegas home and this biological laboratory outside Fresno, California. Both locations connected to this man, David He, who federal officials identify as a Canadian fugitive from China. They say he tried to enter the U.S. 7 times in the early 2000s, and they believe he most recently came into our country illegally.
One person arrested today after an FBI and SWAT raid revealed a biological lab at a home in the Northeast Valley. Thanks so much for joining us tonight at 6 o'clock. I'm Sasha Loftus. This all happening near Washington and Hollywood today. That's where we find 8 News Now reporter Aaron Ariano live near that home with the latest in the investigation. Aaron.
Yeah, Sasha, we're learning new details after that press conference wrapped up earlier this afternoon with Sheriff McMahill and the FBI. The house in question that was raided was right here behind me on Sugar Springs Drive. Take a look at the scene. There's still some active police activity, but over to where I was standing on my left, the camera's right, is a pile of disposable bags. We're not sure exactly what's in it. We know the hazmat team was here earlier today, and that there was a pile of bags being guarded by that police vehicle. It was at that home here along Sugar Springs Drive where they found possible biological material, including refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids. It was part of a search warrant conducted just before 6 o'clock this morning at 2 homes. They cleared 1 home, but police say they found those unknown biological substances in that Sugar Springs Drive home. The hazmat teams, like I said, were called in. The sheriff is calling this investigation extremely complex, but he made it clear that there is no threat to the public.
I want to make sure that those folks that live up there in that northeast area have a clear understanding that the very large first responder presence will likely remain in this neighborhood for several hours and potentially even days. This has to be a slow and methodical process by design. We have to take these situations very seriously.
Like Sasha said, 1 person was taken into custody, but it's not known who that person is or what tipped law enforcement off to this really bizarre discovery. A lot more questions than answers. That's according to the sheriff himself. So we're going to continue to follow this investigation. For now, reporting live here near Sugar Springs Drive, Aaron Ariano, 8 News Now.
Aaron, thank you. Now, that second home involved in the search sits along Temple View Drive, about a block away from the first home. Again, Metro Police saying no threat was found at that second location. They're stunned to hear someone was arrested for housing unknown biological substances at a home in the Northeast Valley. You're watching 8 News Now here at 11 o'clock. I'm Sasha Loftus. The FBI and Metro Police raiding that home today near Washington and Hollywood. 8 News Now reporter Aaron Ariano joins us in studio tonight with the latest in this investigation. Aaron.
Sheriff Kevin McMahill says they'll be spending the next few days investigating the house in question very methodically. Neighbors we spoke with say they're still in shock.
The first thing that goes to our head is it's scary, right?
Andrew Wiggins says in his 7 years living near Sugar Springs Drive, he never thought he would see something like this.
We definitely didn't think it was any kind of biological or, that's serious. So it can affect not just one area, it can affect us all quickly.
According to Sheriff Kevin McMahill, the FBI, Metro Police, hazmat teams, and other agencies raided this home just before 6 o'clock Saturday morning. McMahill says 1 person was arrested for alleged involvement with a biological lab inside the home.
Our teams went inside and found evidence of possible biological material, including refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids.
It's not known what information led police up to this discovery, and the situation is complex, according to the sheriff.
There's a lot of questions that we have that need to be answered, a lot of work that is ahead of us that needs to be done. We have 1 suspect who I was informed that we were taking him into custody as we were walking in here. We're not prepared to release any information on that individual.
Wiggins says he's okay with the large law enforcement presence expected throughout the investigation over the next few days, as long as it means he and his family are safe.
I'm glad that the law is allowing them to do what they need to do and get people and things like this out of our community, because us as citizens, you and everybody else included, we don't deserve to have people like this in our community.
The sheriff says there is no current threat to the public and admits there are more questions than answers, especially with whatever biological material those vials contained. We'll continue to follow this investigation. Aaron Ariano, 8 News Now.
Aaron, thank you for that. Now, a separate home was also searched this morning, just about a block away from the first. Metro Police says no threat was found at that home.
Live, local, now.
First at 4, what was happening inside a suspected biolaboratory and who's in custody? Their details our 8 News Now investigators told you first. Thank you for joining us at 4. I'm Brian Loftus.
I'm Kirsten Joyce. Saturday morning, Metro and the FBI searched a home near Washington and Hollywood for a possible biological laboratory. Investigators finding refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids inside the garage. There have been a lot of questions as to what those liquids are.
Multiple agencies, including Clark County firefighters, are all involved in this active investigation. Now, we do have team coverage for you tonight.
We begin with 8 News Now investigator David Charnes. He is standing by. But first, we go to Aaron Ariano with what officials are saying about what was found inside that home. Aaron.
Sheriff McMahill and the FBI confirming what our 8 News Now investigation team first published this morning, identifying 55-year-old Ori Solomon as the property owner of that home that was raided over the weekend, which uncovered a suspected biological lab, according to police. Now, take a Solomon is facing felony charges of disposing or discharging hazardous waste, according to state records. The home, which sits along Sugar Springs Drive near Washington and Hollywood Boulevard, that's where the FBI and other agencies before 6 o'clock Saturday morning raided that home, finding refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids in that locked garage. Sheriff McMahill confirming once again what our investigation team first reported, that this is actually part of a broader federal investigation in California.
As our investigation progressed, we determined that the home was owned by the same individual connected to a prior illegal biolab investigation in Reedley, California that occurred in 2023.
Sheriff says 3 other individuals were actually inside the home the same day of that raid. They were renting rooms. They were removed from the home and they're not involved in that investigation. Now, FBI scientists and evidence collection teams finished cleaning out that home. They say the home is clear and they don't believe that any neighbors were exposed to anything before or leading up to that raid. As far as what was in those vials, those are being tested right now. That processing is going to take some time, but we're going to continue to follow it to find out what was inside those vials. Reporting live, Aaron Ariano, 8 News Now.
That Sunrise Manor home connected to a business in California, as mentioned, that the feds raided some years ago.
8 News Now investigator David Charnes breaking that part of the story for us. David is live outside Metro headquarters with how this plays into our local investigation. David.
And right now, Kirsten and Brian, local investigators, of course, they are waiting to see exactly what they recovered from that East Valley home. As we first reported, this is all connected to a business that is run out of that home, also run out of a warehouse in California that was part of that raid several years ago. That's leading to more questions about exactly what was happening on the ground here. The 8 News Now investigators first to confirm the connection between this Northeast Las Vegas home and this biological laboratory outside Fresno, California. Both locations connected to this man, David He, who federal officials identify as a Canadian fugitive from China. They say he tried to enter the U.S. 7 times in the early 2000s, and they believe he most recently came into our country illegally. Teams from Metro Police and the FBI raiding a home Saturday listed in the name of a business connected to He. State business records show an active license for David Destiny Discovery, with He named as the registered agent. But he's been in federal custody since his arrest in 2023. Federal investigators say he ran the California biolab, where inside officials found blood, tissue, and thousands of vials of suspected biological material. Some of that material, according to federal investigators, infectious agents like HIV and malaria. Photos from inside also showing some of the hundreds of mice, some wounded, others dead. Officials suspect he and his associates bought counterfeit COVID and pregnancy test kits from China and resold them in packaging like this, claiming they were made here in the U.S. A federal report about the lab and its connections to the Chinese government, finding it shows a, quote, profound threat and significant gaps in our nation's defenses. He faces an ongoing criminal case in federal court, where in documents, he told a judge he no longer runs the companies linked to him. And the sheriff and the FBI wouldn't go any further about how these cases may be linked, other than saying that the business involved in that California case is involved in this one. They also tell us it's going to be a little while until we exactly find out what was in those substances and exactly what they recovered from that home. We'll have more for you here at 5 o'clock. Live outside Metro headquarters, I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
An attorney for David, he did not return our request for comment. We're awaiting a first court appearance for Solomon, the property manager, though no case is showing up yet in federal court.
Our 8 News Now investigators breaking yet more news about that biolab that was raided over the weekend. Documents we obtained reveal several people got sick from it. 8 News Now investigator David Charnes breaking that story. And David, what are you learning about it tonight?
Well, these new documents say several people became sick from that suspected lab inside a house that police and the FBI are labeling as an Airbnb or a short-term rental. Metro showing this video of the inside of that lab, inside that Northeast Valley's home garage. We've learned a person tipped off the FBI in early January that garage was locked and that there were fridges running inside. A person telling those investigators that it smelled like a hospital with a, quote, foul, stale, stagnant air smell. Now, documents say several days after entering that garage, 2 people became, quote, deathly ill. They said they couldn't get out of bed, and several other people had gotten sick there before. Also learning items from this lab were moved from a different location here in the valley, possibly from several years ago when that location failed to get a state license. Now, as we first reported over the weekend, this lab is connected to a lab the feds actually raided 3 years ago in 2023. That location there in Reedley, California, outside Fresno. Inside, officials found similar equipment and pathogens like HIV and malaria. Court documents in that case mention Las Vegas and possible warehouses here. And today, I asked the city manager for that community about her reaction to this latest lab. What was your reaction when you saw over the weekend that all these same people were involved in yet another potential biolab, but this time in Las Vegas?
I will say that I was not surprised. I have sympathy for Vegas, and I feel very bad for that community that they had to endure what they endured over the weekend. But we were not surprised when we heard about it way back in 2023 when this case hit. Through simple search docs, Google, etc., we found multiple connections to Las Vegas, and a congressional investigation that was done on our case, which is public, showed some ties to warehouses in Vegas.
So now the question is why this lab existed if it may have been on the radar or someone's radar 3 years ago. The 8 News Now investigators first to report how Metro arrested this man, 55-year-old Ori Solomon, the property manager of that home, learning today he runs multiple short-term rentals. Prosecutors say he's here on a non-immigrant visa. He can't own any guns, but documents say during that raid on Saturday, officers seized rifles and handguns from him. They say he's been in contact with the man in federal custody connected to the raid in California and whose business owns this Northeast Valley home. Solomon appeared in federal court this afternoon. He's going to remain in custody for at least a couple more days until his next hearing. And in that hearing, we could hear more charges filed against him as Metro and the FBI are awaiting those results to find out exactly what they seized from that house. No indication right now there is any further threat. We, of course, also reached out to Airbnb about all this, and I've not heard back. I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
Also to add here, that city manager and others in the Fresno area are calling on Congress to address gaps in federal law in the regulation of highly infectious agents and laboratories.
Do you think you were ignored?
Yes, frankly, when we came up with our legislation shortly after all of this was discovered, we have not seen it moved forward with the urgency that I think was necessary.
Our 8 News Now investigators asking why it appears a suspected illegal biolab running out of an East Valley home sat there for years, even as the federal government, Congress, and authorities in California knew of possible connections to a similar case there. Our 8 News Now investigators first to report that connection to a raid outside of Fresno, California from 3 years ago. And in documents we obtained about that case, possible Las Vegas ties are mentioned several times. Now, one lawmaker telling 8 News Now investigator David Charnes that his reporting shows a loophole that needs to close.
When I heard the news out of Vegas, I was alarmed, but, unfortunately not surprised.
Republican California Congressman Kevin Kiley wasn't surprised because a federal report he asked Congress to write shows the man suspected of running an illegal biolab in Las Vegas was known to have ties to our area and Nevada as early as 2023. A company connected to David He, who's in federal custody in California, connected to a lab in Reedley, owns this home raided Saturday. Inside, police and the FBI finding refrigerators and suspected biological material.
Why is it that 3 years later we are just finding them?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, the federal response in Reedley was very slow.
Slow because that federal report and leadership in Reedley say the federal government ignored them, even as officials found pathogens like HIV and malaria. Nicole Ziba is the city manager.
I don't know where the FBI's focus was, obviously not Vegas.
She says her teams found He's ties to Las Vegas from simple searches, but it appears any further federal investigation stopped at the state line.
Las Vegas is listed in these federal documents from 3 years ago and a congressional report, and that it wasn't until someone called with a tip about this possible biolab that now it is exposed.
I guess, to be honest with you, I am disappointed. I think our staff uncovered a lot that could have been followed up on.
In light of the discovery here, Kiley is pushing to close a loophole limiting information the federal government receives about labs, whether licensed or not. He's pushing Congress to pass a new law to review records and strengthen oversight.
We don't know what other ones might be out there that are linked to this same group or other, individuals connected to the Chinese Communist Party or anywhere else.
Ties to China and exactly what was happening in the lab here remain unanswered questions that are all part of the investigation. And that includes what pathogens, if any, Metro and the FBI seized. Right now, a lab is testing them, and we don't exactly know when we will see those results. I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
The 8 News Now investigators asking our 2 senators about the biolab and potential changes to the law, both expressing thanks to local and federal law enforcement. Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto adding in part the reports have been extremely disturbing, and I'm exploring the best possible avenues to ensure that unauthorized labs never threaten our community again. Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen adding federal and local authorities need to fully investigate this situation and get to the bottom of what was going on, especially in light of concerns that this property may be connected to another illegal lab, which of course had ties to the Chinese Communist Party there. As alleged, we must do more to increase federal oversight over these illegal biolabs before a catastrophe happens, end of quote. Read the full statements on 8newsnow.com.
Breaking now, the property manager connected to a suspected biolab here in Las Vegas will get freedom as a case linked to last weekend's raid moves forward. Thank you so much for joining us here at 4. I'm Ozzy Mora.
And I'm Brian Loftus. The 8 News Now investigators David Charnes breaking several aspects of this story since that raid on Saturday. David, live outside a federal court where a judge just issued that decision. David?
And that judge ordered this property manager released on the gun charge he faces. Remember, right now he faces no charges connected to the actual biolab. And in court, federal prosecutors didn't even ask her to detain him pending trial. Now, this is 55-year-old Ori Solomon. No cameras in federal court, so all we have to show you is his photo. He's an Israeli citizen here on a non-immigrant visa, and that means he can't own any guns. But during the raid over the weekend, the FBI says it found guns and in a subsequent jail call, he mentioned those guns to a family member, and that landed him in federal custody. Now, that lab, of course, also revealing suspected biological material, though it's really important to remind you, we don't exactly know what that material is right now, what possible pathogens Metro and the FBI sees. It's all still getting tested. Solomon is the property manager of the short-term rental where all of this happened up in Sunrise Manor. He's actually a property manager for dozens of properties, and he's lived in our communities for more than 2 decades. So because of all that, and because there is no federal charge, at least yet, connected to the biolab, this judge ordered his release today. He does have to surrender his passports, and he does have to tell the court here if he plans to leave the county. Live outside federal court in downtown Las Vegas, I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
Metro Police initially detained Solomon on a hazardous waste charge that was connected to the raid. Because the feds then charged them, he was moved to their